Så jag vill säga välkommen till Andrew Bolwell, Chief Disruptor, Technology, Vision and Strategy, HP Labs. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Well, I think I have the toughest job today, to stand up here and resist looking out the window at the weather outside. I came to Stockholm in November last year and really loved it, but I tell you, spring in Halmstad is even better. Wonderful to be here. So, I thought that rather than tell you what I do, if I can go to the first slide here, I would instead share with you a few things that I believe. The first thing I believe is that a single individual or a small group of people can really do amazing things. I mean, change the world amazing. And the second thing I believe is that to change the world or to make an idea happen or just really to do anything successfully, you've really got to believe that you can. And you've got to have a passion for what you do. So my passion is working on things that are either new to world or new to HP. And that's what I'm lucky enough to go to work and do every day. And working on things that are new to world is also the general theme of what I'd like to talk with you about today as well. So there's, I think, so much change happening around us today that I think we forget how fast things are changing. For example, those smartphones in your pocket now have more computing power than all of NASA had in 1969 to put the first man on the moon. Think about that. So that means we have no excuse not to be sending our families into outer space on the weekends now. We definitely have the computing power to do that. And in fact, things are changing so fast that even just a few short years ago, some of the things that we take for granted today, I don't think we would have believed. For example, would you have believed that India would put a spacecraft around Mars for less than what Hollywood spent making the movie Gravity? Or would you have believed that the world's largest taxi company wouldn't own any cars? Of course, I'm talking about Uber here. And similarly, if we look ahead and think about this, over the next 15 years, we will experience more change than in all of human history to date. Now think about how much change you've experienced in your lifetimes. Then imagine a change that equates to all of human history to date in the next 15 years. So, looking through today's eyes into the future, many of the things that we're likely to see are going to seem like science fiction. Just like many of the things happening today would have seemed like science fiction from someone from the year 2000. And so what might a Twitter feed of 2030 look like? I quite like the first one. If you've noticed my accent, I'm from Australia. So as soon as we do have a 25-hour work week there, I'm going back, that's for sure. But maybe computers do become more powerful and more intelligent than human beings. Or maybe medicines and drugs in the future will be custom printed at home on 3D printers. Or maybe we won't even need medicine and drugs anymore. Maybe we'll have devices embedded in us that actually cause the body to create its own cures to disease. And so with all of this change happening around us and all of these unknowns ahead of us, as engineers and marketers and as innovators and as leaders, how do we stay ahead of all this change? How do we lead through it instead of being led by it? So for me, one of the first things I think that's important is just to step back and to understand what's going on in the world around us. What are those megatrends that are shaping the world around us? So I thought I'd play a quick video that talks about some of the more important megatrends that we think are important.
Over the next 15 years, we will experience more change than in all of human history to date. By 2030, 8.5 billion people will walk the earth. They will be drawn to cities in massive numbers for the promise of a better life. Cities will become bigger, and we will have more of them. Bigger cities will spur major economic growth, bringing billions of new consumers into the world economy, most of them in emerging markets. Dense city populations will drive new business models, people choosing to share resources instead of owning them, eager for services that save them time and effort. But such rapid urbanization will take a toll on the environment, straining our natural resources and infrastructure. Simultaneously, changing demographics will dramatically shift the tapestry of our society. Fertility rates are declining, and life expectancy is increasing, leading to an older population and a shrinking and aging workforce, putting increased pressure on healthcare, retirement, and government services. But every cloud has a silver lining. An older, working population will have greater purchasing power than their younger counterparts, creating new, untapped opportunities for brands in a world that is becoming both hyper-global and hyper-local. A world powered by the internet, connecting everyone and everything everywhere, enabling the growth of a vast digital marketplace and digital platforms that are changing the competitive landscape. With startups scaling faster than ever before and market disruption becoming the new norm, forcing companies around the globe to constantly reinvent themselves to stay competitive. As market sectors change, so does technology. The pace and breadth of innovation continues to accelerate. Technology components are constantly maturing and becoming more accessible, forming the building blocks for new breakthroughs to emerge, accelerating us forward. How will we keep up in the midst of a constantly changing world? We can look to these major socioeconomic, demographic, and technological forces, which we call megatrends, to help guide us. We might not be able to know the future, but megatrends can be a beacon for where the world is heading, giving each of us a chance to adapt and chart our own course. The opportunity is ours.
I gotta say, my favorite part is those kids at the end shooting those rockets up there. Life should feel like that more often. So, massive migration of people to cities, aging population, an increasing digital and connected world, and technology that's accelerating us forward into the future at ever-increasing rates. Well, why are these things important? Why are megatrends important to understand? And the very simple reason is because they are going to have a transformative impact on the world in the years ahead. And not just on us as individuals, on governments, on economies, on society, and of course, on all of our businesses. But they're also not future events. They're happening around us as we speak. And in fact, there's a lot of innovation already appearing in the world being driven by these megatrends. So I thought I'd walk through a few quick examples with you. So starting with rapid urbanization. So with all of the people moving into cities, the strain on city infrastructure is increasing. Now, if you're walking down the road today and you saw a pothole in the road, what would you do, apart from avoid tripping on it? You probably wouldn't know who to call. You probably wouldn't pay it much attention. But mobile solutions are coming up that allow you to use your smartphone as a citizen to take a photo of that pothole. It will automatically be sent to the town planners, who can then involve public service, who can then send out a field service rep, and who can then fix that pothole and all of the other potholes that appear in the roads over time, automatically because we're crowdsourcing these issues from citizens in the cities. These sorts of solutions are becoming more and more prevalent. Or, as more people move into cities, we're going to have less room and more demand on resources. So instead of an apartment with 5 rooms, what about a single room that with a touch of a button can convert from a kitchen to a dining room, to a lounge room, a bedroom, and an office? Again, all at the touch of a button. Now take that one step further in the future when you have AI and facial recognition that can recognize your mood, or if there's an unexpected guest in the house, to automatically transform that room for you to make it more appealing. These are the sorts of solutions that rapid urbanization is driving. But rapid urbanization is also changing how we buy and consume products and services. People who live in cities these days really don't care to own things. They're just quite happy to access things. It's called the sharing economy. $330 billion market by 2030. We're sharing our homes, we're sharing our cars, we're sharing the energy that we produce on our roofs, we're even sharing our Wi-Fi these days. When you live in a city, the last thing you want to do too is go out and battle with the traffic. So people who live in dense urban areas also want to outsource everything. This is what's changing, a shift from products to services. We want to have our groceries delivered, our takeout food delivered. Somebody to park our car, somebody to drive us around. Uber, anybody? This is one of my favorites. If you've ever wanted to pack and ship something, typically you have to find a box, then you have to pack it. Then you have to battle that traffic and take it to a FedEx office or the equivalent in Sweden. I love this service. You just take a photo of what you want to ship and somebody arrives at your doorstep in 30 minutes. They take it, they pack it, they ship it, they track it, they do everything for you. In the Bay Area, in fact, there's even a service that will come and fill your car with petrol. You don't even need to go to a petrol station anymore. I mean, everything is being driven by services today. But of course, urbanization is also having an impact on the environment. There was a quote in that video that is really stunning. If we don't change anything, by the year 2030, we will need the resources of 2 entire planets to maintain our current lifestyle. But guess what, guys? We don't have 2 planets. Unless we find another one in the next 15 years, we've got 1 planet. And so examples like this are popping up. This is in Lagos, Nigeria. They love their soccer. They're constrained in the amount of electricity they have. And here is a soccer field where electricity is generated by the footsteps of the soccer players who are playing the game. And it's generating enough electricity to light up the stadium. So sustainability looking forward is going to be even more and more important. We're going to see more and more solutions like this being developed. And of course, I mentioned changing demographics. Quite simply, people are living longer and having fewer babies. This is leading to an aging population. By the year 2060, there will be more than 3 billion more people over the age of 30 than there are today. By 2030, we'll have twice as many people over the age of 65, almost 1 billion. And so solutions that allow better quality of life at home are becoming more and more important. It's actually a pilot in Sweden where they're implementing sensors in the home so that caregivers can keep track of their loved ones at home, including using robotic caretakers who can be there when a human being can't. Now, very, very early stage, but definitely something that we'll see more and more of. When you look at hyperglobalization, the world becoming smaller, becoming interconnected, I thought this was a fun example. This is a model who is wearing a dress down the red carpet, and where that dress actually changes color based to the reaction in social media on that dress. So there's an AI that is automatically filtering all of the social media posts about this dress in real time and translating what's written to an emotion, to sentiment, and then translating that to a color that best represents that emotion, and the dress changes color. So this dress becomes a real-time living reflection of the effect that it's having on the world, really blurring our physical and digital realities. And hyperglobalization is also causing the rise of digital platforms and ecosystems. And in fact, this is what's allowing startups all around the world to scale and grow faster than ever before. We hear this word disruption. I mean, disruption has now become the norm. It's happening to everybody, happening everywhere. It's even happening to those companies that were doing all the disrupting just a few short years ago. I mean, here's an example of a company called Didi Chuxing. If you recall, they were the company that announced a $1 billion investment by Apple a few years ago. They're the Uber in China. Now think about China. China has 800 million people living in cities. 800 million people living in cities. There are more people wanting rides in China than there are cars on the road. So instead of trying to disrupt taxi companies, Didi Chuxing are allowing taxis to plug into their digital platform. And this means that somebody using their service can get a ride quicker, and this is why they're beating Uber in China. Ola is another Uber-like company in India who is doing exactly the same. Because in a hyper-global world, paradoxically, we're also living in a hyper-local world where we really need to focus and build solutions that meet local requirements. Very important. And then we come to the last megatrend that I thought I'd cover today, accelerated innovation. And we all experience this. Even with all of this faster, more powerful, cheaper technology coming at us, we forget that technology is changing fast because digital technologies typically follow an exponential trajectory, not a linear one. It's quite normal. And it's not a blip, it's only going to get faster moving forward. And this is why that same smartphone in your pocket that used to be able to put a man on the moon, in 30 years it won't just be 30 times faster, it will be 1 billion times more powerful. 1 billion. What will we do with it all? And so within this topic of technology, I just wanted to quickly cover 4 technology shifts that I think are really important and that are driving this innovation forward. The first one, hypermobility. The shift from devices that we're carrying today to devices we wear. Who here has a wearable? Hands up! Not many, but you all have heard the word. I mean, wearables become part of the vocabulary today. Or the Internet of Things. As technology gets more powerful and it gets smaller, it's starting to be embedded in the everyday objects and devices around us. Or smart machines. As those devices and things start using machine learning and artificial intelligence, they get smarter. They're able to anticipate our needs. And when they sprout wings and grow wheels and legs, what do we have then? Well, we get drones, robots, and self-driving cars. And last but not least is one we call 3D transformation, which is all about how in the future we will create and manufacture future products. But I also want to say something that's really important for me, is that this isn't about more technology for technology's sake. I mean, technology really needs to help us live a better life, to be more productive, to be more creative, just to spend more time with the people that we love. And the other thing I think that we probably all experience as well, and I referred to it earlier, is this collapsing of our physical and digital worlds. They're becoming more and more intertwined. And at HP, we call that blended reality, the fusing of our physical and digital worlds in ways that create new and improved experiences for people. So I would say one thing is that technology is a means to an end. It is there to help us and to give us a better experience in life. So let's start with hypermobility very quickly. Okay, today we have more than 5 billion people in the world who use a mobile phone. I bet it would be hard-pressed to find someone in this room who does not. And a very interesting stat I heard a while ago was that there are only 4 billion people in the world who use a toothbrush. So often always looking for those people on the phone with really bad teeth, because I think that's the missing billion there. But even more remarkable is that nearly 1 billion people living under the poverty line. And by the way, poverty line means earning less than $1.25 a day. Nearly 1 billion people living under the poverty line have a mobile phone. So for me, this is just showing how mobility is changing Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, right? We're moving from food, water, shelter to food, water, mobility, shelter. Mobility is becoming that important and wearable. And as it continues to shrink, we're seeing more and more use cases for technology inside the body. Now, this is mainly used in healthcare today. But for example, we're already seeing trials with something called nanobots, nanoscopic robots that in the billions swim through your bloodstream and seek and destroy cancer cells. When they come across a cancer cell, they emit a very targeted specific drug that affects just that cancer cell, not the normal and healthy cells that are surrounding it. So technologies like these are being used to save lives. We're also seeing technologies that involve, let's say, the biggest problem with technology like a pacemaker is the power source. I mean, if the battery runs out in your pacemaker, that's not a good thing. And typically because of the power source, this is why they're large and bulky. So researchers up the road at Stanford University are looking into something that can power these devices from outside the body. They can transmit power from outside the body to these devices that are inside the body. Very early stage yet, but now imagine all of those phones in your pocket. That you won't have to, in the future, find a power outlet and plug them in to charge them. We'll have ambient wireless charging. They will be charging all the time. They will always have power. This is the promise of some of these technologies. Let's talk about the Internet of Things quickly. Who here has some sort of smart device at home or somewhere? Most of you now. I mean, everything from connected toothbrushes to connected home appliances to connected cars, of course, to cities and offices. But we also think that it's more than just these electronic devices. That everything printed and everything made and manufactured will also have a digital service associated with it. So if you go into the restaurant, you're looking at a menu. Why can't you just wave your phone in front of it and get a picture of what the meal will look like, or the nutrition information, or what other people thought about it? All of these things, and this is why we think of this as the Internet of all things. But I also think that we're very early stage today. For everyone that put their hand up that had one device at home, how many of you have more than one? Wow, you guys are like pretty cool around here. Do they all work well together? No, not yet. And that's the biggest bottleneck right now, is it's great to have one and maybe even two, but get more than that, and you've got to use 1, 2, 3 different apps to control them all. The promise of the Internet of Things is when all of these devices can collaborate and work amongst themselves to figure out and deliver you a service that you need and you want without you having to think and worry about it. Now, in the commercial context, maybe that looks like something like this. You walk up to the door and it knows who you are, so it lets you in automatically. No need to remember your security pass. You're on a call, you walk up to your desktop, it automatically transfers you into a video call without you having to worry about how to do that. You go to a meeting, you're running late. The people in the meeting room know where you are. They know how late you are. They know when you'll arrive. Wouldn't that be cool? When you get there, your presentation automatically downloads from the cloud. It's automatically shared with everybody, local and remote. You don't have to plug in and spend 8 minutes doing that. And if the meeting's running late, your family at home get automatically notified that you're running late, the oven's automatically turned off and delayed, and everyone's happy, right? So this is sort of the promise of the Internet of Things when this becomes possible. And I know there's a few giggles because you all want it. We all want it, right? So let me talk quickly about smart machines. Now, at least when I was growing up, and very much so today, you used to program a computer by figuring out what you wanted it to do, and then you would code that into an algorithm. You guys all know this. But you've probably heard these terms: machine learning, deep learning, artificial intelligence. What are they all about? Quite simply, there's a lot of things in life that we don't know how we do. We don't know how we recognize a face. We don't know how, when we see a picture of a cat, we know it's a cat or a dog. Simple things like that. We can't program a computer to do that because we don't know how to do it. And so we invented this concept called machine learning. Instead of telling a computer what to do, we teach a computer to learn. And the computer, the artificial intelligence, learns on its own. And for me, this was really struck home about maybe a little over a year ago when I saw a video on a computer program that learned to play a game called Breakout. You guys played that before? You hit a ball with a bat, and when you hit a brick, you get a score. The brick disappears, and the objective is to get the highest score possible. So they didn't teach this computer how to play the game. They just said, the objective is to get the highest score possible. That's all I'm going to tell you. So for the first 30 minutes, the bat sat on the left-hand side of the screen. Didn't move. No score. Terrible. You'd think this is a waste of time. But then randomly, the bat hit the ball, and the AI figured out, oh, that's how I get a score. Over the next 30 minutes, it played reasonably well, maybe as well as a 10-year-old kid. 30 minutes later, it was probably playing better than any human player had played that game. But that wasn't what surprised me. It was what happened in the next 30 minutes. When the computer figured out that if it just hit the ball at a certain spot up the left-hand side of the screen, that it would bounce and break all the bricks up there, the ball would hit the top of the screen and destroy all of the bricks without having to hit the ball with the bat again. And I thought, wow, that computer's smarter than me. I wouldn't have been able to figure that out. And then, of course, you've probably heard recently that, people saying, oh, that's just a simple game. A computer started to beat the grandmaster at chess. Oh, that's just a simple game. Chess is a simple game, but computers will never win a game called Go. There are more moves in Go than atoms in the universe. And you can't just program, that very easy. You need intuition. And yet, a month or so ago, a computer program beat a world grandmaster at Go. 3 times in a row. The 4th time, the human won. Yeah, right? Well, what happened? The computer learned what it did wrong. Absolutely blitzed the 5th game. But then you might even say, Andrew, that's just a game. It doesn't matter. But then a few months later, after that original game of Breakout, a computer actually solved a scientific theory that had baffled scientists for centuries. There's a type of worm called a flatworm. It can regenerate its body parts, and scientists wanted to know how it did that, just in case we ever needed to do that too. But we couldn't figure out how. 100 years of research, it still baffled us. So they gave this problem to an AI that solved it in 42 hours. A working theory of how a flat room regenerated a body part in 42 hours. So it's not just games. And it's also not just IQ or intelligence. You guys may have heard of a robot in Japan called Pepper. These researchers going into emotional intelligence, teaching robots and computers how to recognize human emotions and respond to them. Now, maybe machines can never feel the emotions we have, but they sure can recognize what we're feeling. This robot does not vacuum floors, it does not wash windows, it does not clean your barbecue. The sole purpose of this is to be a companion. So if you're feeling sad, maybe it tells you a joke. If you're looking confused, it might give you the answer to whatever's on your mind. We'll be seeing more and more of these as things move forward. And last but not least, something we call 3D transformation, which is a lot more than 3D printing. It's really the reinvention of manufacturing. Everything from how we design products in the future to how we manufacture them in factories or in our homes. Now, it wasn't much more than 150 years ago when we still had blacksmiths. Master craftsmen, master designers, they could make anything you wanted, custom, as long as it was one or a very low number. Of course, that didn't scale very well. So we had the Industrial Revolution, where designs became blueprints. And manufacturing became production lines, and you could have any color car you wanted as long as it was black, right? And since then, not much has changed. We've got better design tools, and we've got better manufacturing tools and more automation, but it's still pretty much mass manufacturing. But I think we're at the cusp of something new. A lot of the design tools that previously were for professional designers only are becoming accessible to consumers, to you and I. And 3D printing is making it possible for anyone to be a manufacturer. So I actually think we're on the cusp of maybe a new industrial revolution where we all get to be blacksmiths, we all get to be master craftsmen. We all get to create whatever we can imagine and manufacture it as well. And so let me play a quick video that talks about what I mean by easy to use design tools.
My job can be really stressful. In what little spare time that I have, I like to play music. When I'm playing, everything else melts away. It has a very calming effect. Talking to these kids and having conversations, trying to connect with them, I like to kind of put them in that spot as well, to just let them know that they're gonna be all right. A lot of times I just try to find things that I have in common with them. Hey, did you see the latest superhero movie? What'd you think about that? Things that you like to do for fun. Keep them happy and focused on that as opposed to what they're coming into the office for. First thing I discovered on Sprout was a 3D camera. And I was like, this is just so cool. I really wanted to see what I could do with it. I loved watching the computer work, taking the 3D scan of the object. I'd never seen anything like that. The Intel RealSense technology let me capture a 3D scan that you can move around and resize easily. Right now, I'm designing a prototype that could go right on top of a child's cast.
Okay, check this out. You're gonna love this. You're gonna be a total superhero.
I thought this was a really cool idea because I wanted to make it customizable for him. I think making an idea into something real can help the child forget about their fears. That's a pretty great feeling.
Love that video too. I thought the main message there is when you make things that are easy to use and accessible to everybody, you don't have to come up with all the use cases for them. People will discover that themselves and do things like this. That's very cool. So let's talk about the back end of this process now, the 3D printing part. Now, maybe a year and a half ago, HP introduced a new 3D printing technology called MultiJet Fusion. And a really unique thing about MultiJet Fusion is that you can change the properties of the part you're printing at a near molecular level. Now in the 2D world, as we all know this pixel, right? We all know what a pixel is. In the 3D world, it's called a voxel, a volumetric pixel. Think of it like a 3D pixel. And what MultiJet Fusion can do, it can actually change the properties of the material being printed at a voxel level. Now, because we can print 300 million voxels per second at a 21 micron pitch accuracy, which is about a quarter of the width of a human hair, we can start to do some pretty amazing things. So for example, we can change the color anywhere in the part at a voxel level. We can change it from smooth to rough. We can change it from opaque to see-through. We can make it solid or rubbery. And we can even print electronics. We're also looking at ways that we can use different materials, not just plastics, but ceramics and metals as well. Now, all of this happens within a single part. And so when you take all of this together, you actually have manufacturing control at a level that we've never had before, right? When you pair it with those easy-to-use design tools, and you pair those with this sort of technology, you can now create fully functional IoT, fully connected devices using just digital technologies. I don't know, maybe in 10 years, maybe we'll be upgrading our phones at home and our 3D printers. Who knows? So here's a quick look at what we think reinventing manufacturing means.
To you, designers and engineers, captains of industry, and leaders of thought, anyone whose ambitions have ever exceeded what was possible, this is your moment. Your rewrite history, the world is not flat moment. Every facet of how you design and manufacture is about to be reinvented, and it all starts here. With the smallest of building blocks, the mighty HP Voxel. You and it are about to change the world by advancing radical prototyping, accelerating manufacturing, and taking precision and strength to unheard of heights. From today forward, the 3D printer is a factory for thought, where the things we make will make us smarter, better, more human. What a future we'll create with new materials and embedded intelligence. Together, we'll bring extraordinary to the everyday and reality to dreams light years away. Welcome to the age of digital production, on demand, a world without waste, without inventory, without warehouses. Meet the first HP Jet Fusion 3D printers, the digital furnaces of the next industrial revolution. Join us as we engineer the never-before, voxel by voxel. HP MultiJet Fusion. Keep reinventing.
And when we all just start getting used to this new world of 3D printing, along comes somebody who invents something called 4D printing. It never ends. 4D printing is 3D printing, but using smart materials that can then change shape over time after they've been produced, based on external stimuli like heat, cold, air pressure. So think of an aeroplane wing where the curvature changes automatically depending on the atmospheric pressure or the fuel efficiency required. And then haptic holography is also, we all know about the virtual and virtual reality, augmented reality. We can see virtual objects in the physical world today. Haptic holography is all around being able to touch them, to feel them, to actually interact with them. And maybe some point in the future, we won't be able to tell the difference between something that's virtual and something that's physical. And which really brings us back to the beginning. So with all of this change going on, with all of these things happening around us, how do we stay ahead of it? Well, I like to think one of the ways is just to become megatrend ready. Think through how to take advantage of urbanization, changing your products into services, designing for sustainability, catering to an aging workforce and an aging customer base, taking advantage of digital platforms, building ecosystems around your companies, understanding these technology shifts that are fueling innovation around us. I think the second thing is to focus on the experience that you want your customers to have. Now, HP and Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, we understand the how of building all of those things. I think your job is to focus on the problems that you want to solve and those experiences that you want to deliver. And last but not least, I come back to what I started with, which is more of an attitude, nothing to do with technology. It's a belief that you can change the world, a belief that if you just keep focused on that problem, you'll figure out an answer. It's a belief that everything is possible. And it sort of reminds me about what it was like to grow up. Do you remember when you were young and people would ask you what you wanted to be when you got older? Do you remember what you said? Do you remember how you felt? As a kid, you didn't say, I want to be a nurse or a doctor or an astronaut and doubt yourself. If you wanted to be an astronaut, you were going to be an astronaut. There was no doubt in your mind. And then we get older, and as adults, I think we sometimes forget that. We listen to all of the people who tell us why we can't do something, why we shouldn't do something, why it's been done before and it will never work. Don't listen to those people. And the coolest thing for me is that when you think about the future, it has not happened yet. The future is in the future. We all get to create it. So on behalf of HP and Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, we look forward to working with you all to create the most compelling future possible. Thank you very much.